Praburam Seshadri is a certified lead auditor for quality management systems based on ISO 9001, IATF 16949-2016, ISO 14001, ISO 45001, and AS 9100, and ISO 17025. This also includes ISO 27001. During the last 10 years in certification and consulting services, he's helped more than 100 companies, including manufacturing and service sectors, achieve various management system certifications globally. Praburam, take it away.
Thanks, Lara. And greetings, folks. Let's get started up with this integrated management systems and conducting integrated management system audits. As a part of this International Auditor Symposium, on behalf of Omnex, let's get started with understanding what is integrated audits and how to perform integrated audits for integrated management systems. So this is a brief presentation on integrated audits, and this is a part of the sessions in integrated management systems. The first session would be integrated management systems and how to integrate it. And the second session is on the risk, integrated risks, I would say, rather. And these sessions are part of the integrated management system courses. And this short, brief presentation would cover how to conduct integrated audits as a part of this integrated management system. So let me quickly introduce to you Omnex. Folks, Omnex is a 30-year-old company. More than 30 years we have been serving the industries. And we are providing consulting and training services, also software solutions to our clientele base. We also serve organizations for implementing management systems and provide business excellence consulting to organizations. As a part of this, we also provide certification services and implementing management systems for certification. Folks, we are leader in Lean Six Sigma and also breakthrough systems. We provide Lean Six Sigma services to automotive industries via AAAG Alliance. I believe, folks, you know AAAG well. We are headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and we have trained more than 1,00,000 people. We are present globally around 30 countries, and more than 400 professionals work for Omnex across the globe. To be proud about Omnex, we have been in the former delegation leader of IATF. We have been serving committees. We have been part of the technical committees who develop standards, especially to cite better. Omnex is a member of AAAG manual writing committees for FMEAs, SPC, MSA, and especially error proofing and effective problem solving. A quick view of our global presence, and we serve our organizations from these offices across the globe worldwide. Who in the world is Omnex? And what's our clientele base? We are pioneer in management system training, consulting, and implementation services across the globe. Our clientele base includes the listing, but not limited to, starting from aerospace divisions, marine industries, automotive, and also for other industrial sectors. Of course, a quick introduction was provided by Lara about the speaker. I'm Praburam Seshadri. I serve Omnex as Principal Consultant and Technical Head. I also participate in consulting services for automotive and other industrial sectors, including aerospace, laboratories, and information security organizations. Have served more than 100 companies for implementing management system standards. And to be proud about the career growth, I have been part of the design excellence projects and I have been trained in design process improvements. And today's agenda, let's talk about integrated audits today. So agenda for this session would cover integrated audits, how to audit IMS, integrated audit program and planning, conducting an integrated document review. A vital part of the integrated management system audits is how to perform a document review, how to sample audits, and how to perform an audit on site. We're also going to talk about how to write an integrated non-conformity, and based on which, how to close out the integrated audit findings. We will also have a quick overview on what are the competency requirements for an auditor in an integrated management system. So these topics will be covered briefly in today's session. Folks, let's start with the integrated audits. So what's an integrated audit about? Integrated audit, it means a team of auditors verifies the system simultaneously. And if a client is having a single system, and it's easy for the clients to demonstrate the effectiveness of the single system. Imagine if the client is going to have, or the organization is going to have, multiple management systems certified and they do not possess integration, then it's going to be very difficult for them to demonstrate with more efforts on implementation, demonstration, and also on auditing effects. So what is key for this? What is an integrated audit about? We are going to look at multiple management systems as a single system, which are interconnected and integrated via processes. So we are going to talk about integrated processes and integrated risks, and which would be done or which would be evaluated through an integrated audit. So what's the key to an integrated audit is an integrated process map. And why do we talk about these integrated audit and integrated process map? It's going to save a lot of money, and also it's going to help us in demonstrating the integrated management system effectively. While sampling one process, multiple management systems are going to be sampled simultaneously. So we are going to look in this session how we're going to do a sampling of one process and how to evaluate multiple management systems. The organization is audited by one team of auditors, which may include a technical expert, of course, and for instance, like an EMS expert or an health and safety expert or a food safety expert. So this one team is going to audit processes in the organization in an integrated way, which would sample one process but evaluated simultaneously for multiple management systems. Special skills may be required for operational controls or regulatory requirements. So competencies are very important in order to perform integrated audits. So this type of audit is carried out by auditors capable of assessing at least two management systems. Now that pronounces very clearly that the auditor's competence is a very key for an integrated audits. So going forward, as I told, its key requirement is that an integrated process map is a key for integrated audits. So what's a process map about? process map in a simple terminology, I would attribute it to integrated sequence and interactions of processes. Now, process map is a documented or demonstrated version of integrated sequence and interaction of processes. It's a depiction of these sequence and interactions. The first place of integration is the sequence and interaction of processes. And class reference 4.4 of the standard, talking about quality management system or environmental management system or health and safety management system, the clause 4.4 very clearly stipulates the requirement of sequence and interaction of processes. That makes it very clear that the key to an integrated audit is an integrated sequence and interaction of processes. Now, each of the processes in an organization under the sequence and interaction map must satisfy multiple requirements, which includes quality, health, occupational health and safety, food safety if applicable. We can see a quick picture of it which depicts the interaction and sequencing. Integrated management system of multiple standards. For example, like quality management system, ISO 9001, or either ISO 14001, clause 5.1 explicitly stipulates the requirement of sequence and interaction of processes. And when we compare these two standards of ISO 9001 and ISO 14001, we can very well see that a 100% agreement between these two standards are there. And that makes it very clear that integration is possible. And when we have integrated system, it will fetch more benefits for the organization. Now, 45001, ISO 45001, which is an occupational health and safety management system, may have additional requirements, and these can also be integrated through this sequence and interactions. An organization which understands the sequence and interactions well will definitely demonstrate an integrated approach. Now, when we look at an overview of the class requirements of multiple standards, it all has been made easy when the high-level structure has been put in place. Now, what we see on the screen is a management system linkage using the high-level structure and a high-level mapping of 9001, 14001, and 45001 of ISO. We can very well see that there are many common requirements in the PDCA approach, and there are few sector-specific requirements and also few management system standard requirements specific to that standards. Now, what's a common requirement? Under high-level structure, the common requirement makes it common across all these standards. And sector-specific requirement specifies to the industry. So these class requirements of which are highlighted as sector-specific might vary with industrial sectors like automotive or aerospace or marine divisions. A management system specific requirement could be very specific additions which are explicit to that international standard. However, the slide is very clearly demonstrating that we can integrate easily because of this high-level structure. And going forward about the integrated audits, what is so important is we need an integrated audit program. So when we talk about the audit program as required by the international standard ISO 19011 guidelines for auditing, it very clearly explains that we need to establish audit program objectives. And when we set the audit program objectives, we're going to set that on integrated audits, an integrated management system for an IMS implemented organization. And the audit program would cover establishing an audit program, implementing them, monitoring the audit program, and reviewing and improving the audit program, which is the typical cycle under ISO 19011. The audit program requires more efforts in terms of integrated audits. So when we are preparing an audit program, we need to consider a risk-based audit program. The new update from these standards very clearly specifies an explicit concept of risk-based thinking. So the risk-based thinking has been emphasized on all these management system standards. Now, when I make an audit program, I need to consider the risk-based audit program, which includes how important is the process, how many failures or incidents have occurred in terms of quality, environment, and health and safety in these processes. And let's also look into our previous performance from the internal and external audits. And the organization should also look into specific type of non-conformances raised in the management systems. And very well, we need to look into the changes also from the interested parties and any changes made in the management system. So this makes us to think about how much risk is possessing in the processes. So based on which we develop an audit program. Now these factors help us to prioritize the audit plan for those processes which are with high risk and for those areas where the part of audit needs to be focused. And from there on, we define the audit objectives, audit scope, criteria, frequency, the type of audit required, roles and responsibilities, and reporting methodologies. So when we talk about the audit program preparation, the risk-based approach gives us an effective audit planning. And considering the integrated audits, the integrated risks needs to be taken into account. So in an integrated management system, what are the three pillars? You make the integrated process, address the integrated risks, and evaluate through a risk-based integrated audits. And these improvements which are taken on the integrated audit outcome must be linked with the business processes and the organizational goals. So that makes a very effective achievement towards the goals. Now, a quick slide on what's an audit objective, audit scope, and criteria. In integrated audits, our audit objective would be to conformance to integrated management system. So what are we evaluating in integrated audits is not a single management system, but multiple management systems which are integrated. And what would be the scope? The audit scope would cover the extent and boundaries that includes products, processes, and services. And audit criteria, nevertheless, it's the management systems integrated by the organization. Now, integrated audit planning based on the audit objective, scope, and criteria. The risk-based approach provides us a very effective audit planning. So what are the artifacts inside integrated audit planning. We initiate an audit, prepare the working documents like checklists and audit reports, then assign the team, define the roles and responsibilities. A very vital part of the audit process is your document review using integrated checklist, and based on which we create a plan for on-site audit. And during the on-site audits, we assess readiness through the adequacy of documentations and also the demonstration on-site. And then prepare the audit plan and communicate to the auditees to perform the audit on-site audits. Now, how does an audit plan look like in an integrated approach? Folks, we need to understand that the audit plan is created based on the high risks of the process. An audit plan is a description of activities and arrangements for an audit. And the audit plan should be based on the readiness review, which we have done through the documentation reviews. Audit plan should have activity planned based on integrated process and integrated risk consideration, which I have been repeatedly saying on these slides. The team leader should prepare the audit plan, communicate it to the auditee, that means the client or the audit team, and ensure that the auditee is aware about the audit timing and the audit activities. How does the plan look like? It should facilitate scheduling and coordination of the auditing activities. The plan should also reflect scope and complexity of the audits. The details may differ, for example, between initial and subsequent audits and also between internal and external audits, but typically will have the timeline and activity and the persons who are involved in the audits. The audit plan should be sufficiently flexible to permit changes if an auditee would require to have a change with respect to an audit activity. Audit trails should be considered when developing the audit plan. Now, having said that, hey, what's an audit trail? In integrated audits, audit trails are very vital. An audit trail is a very important tool for an auditor. Omnex strongly recommends audit trail approach for integrated audits. Now let's look into purpose of documentation review and why do we do a documentation review prior to the on-site evaluation of management systems. A documentation review is required in order to plan the audit, but also we need to assess the adequacy of these integrated management system documentation requirements. A documentation review will also help us in evaluating the client's location and site-specific conditions. It makes us to prepare ourselves to understand the client's process or the organization's process. The documentation review will also help us to collect information on regulatory requirements and statutory requirements. The document review will also make an effective planning on resources and evaluate the readiness of the organization towards the on-site audit. What are the things to be covered under the documented information or document review? During the document review, which is done prior to the integrated audits on site, the required documented informations are scope of the integrated management system, IMS policies, risk and opportunity management documented informations, organizational goals like objectives and targets, and very important is the integrated process maps, the integrated sequence and interactions, internal audits covering IMS requirements, management review meetings and its outcome, and of course the non-conformity and corrective action records. Now, if you look at these artifacts of documented information requirements, it very well will help us to plan ourselves towards the on-site audit. We can plan our resources. We can plan our audit activities. We can very well assess the readiness of the organization towards the integrated management system. Looking at some sector-specific documented information requirements, these requirements may require a high level of integration or a medium level of integration depending upon the size and the type of organizations where the IMS is implemented. Like operational control procedures and records might vary from organization to organization. However, the integrated approach would benefit the organization in terms of these contract or customer requirement review records covering IMS, QHSE requirements. Organizations should understand that requirements related to quality, health and safety or environment may differ customer to customer. Now, what's so important about it is how the organizations are going to address these customer requirements into their integrated management system. For example, the automotive specific standard IATF 16949, where customer specific requirements are indicated, and customer specific requirements may vary with different automakers. Now, how well these are addressed in the management system being implemented by the organization. And during our documentation review, we need to assess how well the organization have addressed these customer requirements. And also, additionally, the sector specific, which would vary with organization to organization, include design and development records, supplier related records, production, stores and operations related records, performance evaluation related records and documentations, legal and other requirements which are related to the products and processes, and its related procedures and records. These might vary, and the level of integration might also vary with different organizations. Now, why would we talk about this? Because it's more important in integrated audit planning that when we do the documentation review, it gives us more information about the organization and also to know about the level of integration. Now, what are the checkpoints for documentation review? The very important checkpoint is that the integration level. To what extent the organization has integrated the management system standards. I've just taken a quick note of a class requirement in the management system standard, which is common requirement across ISO 9001, ISO 14001, and also ISO 45001. That's none other than the clause 511, where the standard emphasizes that top management shall demonstrate its leadership and commitment with respect to the management system by ensuring the integration of quality management system requirements into the organization's business processes. Now, when we look at ISO 14001, the same statement appears with environmental management system requirements into the organization's business process, same as in ISO 45001 too. Now that makes it very clear that the integration level is common across these standards, and it makes top management responsible for demonstrating their leadership and commitment in relation to this. The organization's top management should realize how important is integration of management systems. And the standard very well explains the need for integration. And the intent is very clear here to integrate into the business process. The second thing which we need to check during the documentation review is the interrelationships and interfaces. In simple terms, I would say interaction of processes. And to what level the sector-specific standards have been integrated. And what are the adequacy levels? And how well the policy objectives and organizational goals have been integrated. And the level of integration on roles, responsibility, and authority. And how well the controls have been established, and how well the processes are monitored against effectiveness and efficiency. And last but not least, check for the change management too. How well the organizations have integrated the change management processes. A quick sample of a document review checklist is added. Now we can see the ISO class numbers and the titles which are common across these standards. And since high-level structure, now using these document review process, which is done prior to the integrated audits, we prepare for the on-site audit. And what do we do in the integrated audit on-site is collect evidences. And during our on-site audit, we interview people, we observe, we collect documented records and evaluate them, sample and create random sampling out of it, and look for evidences of conformance, evaluate the evidences against a criteria, and then conclude on findings whether it is conforming. Finally, take a conclusion decision. And these activities would be performed post the document review when we do the integrated audits on site. Now going little deep diving into the example of vision audit. And we can use forward trace or a backward trace in doing these audits. What's an audit trail? Let's look into planning, performance, evaluation, and improvement audit trail. Site. This is one of for an integrated approach. And in planning performance evaluation and improvement audit trail, the evaluation starts right from alignment of the context, interested party expectations, quality policy, objectives, and whether it is deployed in the organization, and how well the organization have planned them, and how the quality management system process addresses the objectives and extent of management review. And this trail also studies management review, looking at results of organization's activities to determine whether they are improving and achieving the intended results. Now we start from context of the organization and then understanding the interested party requirements, how these have been utilized in the planning activity, and how it has been reviewed to improve the organizational's performance. Now this audit trail cuts across different class requirements of the standard. And in integrated audits, we do cover the multiple management systems. Now, a couple of examples of audit trails. We can do a new product realization audit trail, or production and service provision audit trails. And using these audit trails, the integrated approach can be effectively utilized for evaluation. During our internal audits, the audit trails would help the organization in an effective manner. And when we talk about integrated audits, and when we pick the audit trails, we cover multiple management systems through these audit trails. Now, how do we go about sampling out of it, and how do we link it? Taking a quick example of provision audit trail in order to discuss on linkages and samples, the products being sampled needs to be considered when we talk about an audit trail. And when you sample in a new product development audit trail, or when you sample new product audit development or a provision audit trail, we normally pick products and do the audit based on a product type or a product family. And during provision audit trail, we could either pick products or family of products similar to a new product development, and then perform the audit trail approach. Products that cover all the processes, or products which has major product families. For EMS and OSHAs, the product should also represent significant aspects and potential safety and health hazards. Now, what am I talking about is, how do we pick samples for a provision audit trail? A very good audit sampling is to pick the products in the provision audit trail and then take it forward from multiple processes. Quickly going back to explain this phenomena, when we look at the provision audit trail, we need to consider the multiple manufacturing process or service processes in the organization. And start with the product sampled out and take it forward through all the manufacturing or service processes and cover the audit trail that includes control of non-conforming product, analysis of data, and improvement too. And when we take it towards the integrated audits, do give the processes are sampled by selecting products and then auditing how each clause is being met with regard to sample product. And when selecting relevant processes. And do not forget, when you select products, a small percentage of sales as well as major product line needs to be represented. And operational conditions for these products needs to be considered. And if the organization is required to provide any post-delivery services, these processes will need to be sampled as well. And never forget quality management system or environmental management system or health and safety. While sampling one process, multiple management systems are sampled simultaneously. And that's the power of integrated audits. Now, when we do this, the audit team should understand the importance of sampling and use of audit trail, and also process the competency of multiple management systems so that the integrated audits are made effective. Now, there are a few effective techniques for integrated audits. You can use a process flow or an interaction chart, the input activity output verification methodology, the 5M&E approach like material, methods, machines, manpower, and environment approach, an octopus model, a turtle model. Even though there are many effective techniques for integrated audits, all these techniques funnel down to one approach called the process approach. And I have been emphasizing the key towards an integrated audit is an integrated process. And a process approach will help us to make the integrated audits effective. Omnex also recommends the use of turtle model for effective planning and preparation for integrated audits. A quick slide on to show what's a turtle diagram approach about. Most of the organizations are aware about the turtle diagram approach, which is effective demonstration of process approach. And this tool helps us not only to understand the process, it also helps us to plan and prepare for the audits. Now we can use these artifacts of turtle diagram in order to prepare a checklist also. Integrated audit methods, a quick snapshot of how the human interaction or no human interaction connects with an on-site or a remote activity. Looking at the overview of this slide, what is more emphasized is the interviews, the checklists and questionnaires which are used when human interactions are being made. And when there are no human interactions, you would see the emphasis given on a document review and observations through surveillance and on-site visits. So what is key for an integrated audit is how well we manage the human interaction and no human interaction activities in an integrated audit. Using the integrated processes, we need to understand the processes of the organization. Use the tools and techniques like audit trails, a turtle diagram, to plan and prepare for the integrated audits. And when we prepare for the integrated audits, we need to consider and give due care for interviews and preparation of checklists and performance of document reviews. In this session, a quick snapshot of an integrated audit checklist is also provided here in this slide, which is a sample indicating two different management system standards getting integrated in here. Now, before we get into the checklist, let's look at the benefits of checklist. A benefit of an integrated checklist is keeping the audit objective very clear, help the audit team in an effective planning, record the evidences, and avoid and reduce auditor bias, reduce workload during the audits, and record samples effectively. And when we use an integrated management system checklist, it helps us in terms of not missing any requirements of multiple management system standards. But it has got disadvantages too. The risks of checklist may restrict auditors' versatility and scope. An auditor might focus too much on classes versus process approach. Now that's a dangerous one for an integrated audit. The reason behind: if the auditor misses the focus on process approach, the audit would orient more towards the class requirements, and that will make an ineffective audit. The key to the success is use the audit checklist as a tool and trigger and apply the process approach to complete the audit effectively. Added few slides on concept of questioning, how to use probing questions, and very vital is do use open-ended questions. And it's good in an integrated audit that mostly we should ask for demonstrations. Auditors should have a good relative questioning skill, and auditors should also possess the skill of asking questions to demonstrate. And then using these concepts of questioning, the evidences are evaluated. Few questioning skills, but not limited to. The list indicates very clearly a process approach technique and use of questions to orient toward the process approach. The auditor shall use the checklist and apply the techniques to question. And if you look at these questions, most of them are towards the process approach. It makes the auditee to demonstrate the process. And when the auditee demonstrates the process, auditors of integrated audits should assess the department objectives and also how well the integrated management system goals are addressed. And when we apply the process approach technique, the auditor shall apply integrated approach. Now going forward, upon completing the on-site audits, a very vital part of the audit is reporting. And the most difficult part is how to write an integrated nonconformity. Most of the auditors are trained on nonconformity writing. If it's a single management system, it's easy for an auditor to refer and to report a nonconformity. When auditing an integrated process, if it does not meet requirements, it will be failing common requirements in multiple standards. Auditors shall take note and clearly report a nonconformity in an integrated approach. So what are the key things in a nonconformity report? Is the requirement and what went wrong and what is the objective evidence. Using these three artifacts, an auditor shall report the nonconformity in an auditee friendly manner, which will help the auditee to initiate actions. A quick example of a good integrated nonconformity statement. Folks, let me give you a situation here. While auditing an organization, auditor came across a risk assessment register which did not integrate and implement the actions into its EMS process. Now that's a nonconformity. And how do we write a nonconformity here? Auditor shall write a nonconformity statement in a very simple language stating risk assessment process is not addressing how to integrate and implement the actions to address risks and opportunities in the integrated management system process. Hey, look at that. It's a process. And in the integrated management system, the risk assessment process, one of the process has failed to address a requirement. Now look at the objective evidences. It's very clear in the objective evidence that the risk register has recommended actions, but the same is not integrated and implemented. And this refers to an environmental management system evidence. Even though the objective evidence has been sampled out from environmental management system, and the sample was referring to an environmental aspect and its compliance obligation related risks, what failed is the risk assessment process. Now that's the emphasis, and that's the competency requirement of an auditor. In an integrated audit, the auditor shall possess such a level of competency to demonstrate that when one sample has been chosen, he will evaluate it against multiple management system standards. And looking at this example, it's very clear that even though the non-conformity management system standard, but it affects integrated processes and integrated risks. Now that is an integrated audit failure. Now this integrated audit has identified a failure in a management system implementation. Now the auditor shall report in such a way that the actions are initiated in an integrated manner, and the class requirements of ISO 9001, 14001 and ISO 45001 requires risk to be integrated and non-conformity statement should be returned. Based on the audit requirements, grading of non-conformities are very vital. And we shall grade the non-conformity based on the requirements listed in this slide. A quick snapshot on how the process to act on a non-conformity. The auditor raises the non-conformity. It goes to the auditee. Auditee evaluates, makes an analysis of root cause, initiate corrective action, implements them, and the follow-up activities are performed. In particular process is that the auditee raises a non-conformity in an integrated approach, similar to which the auditee would also evaluate the root causes and initiate corrective actions in an integrated approach. When an integrated audit is done on integrated management systems, sampled out in an integrated approach, the auditee shall also implement actions in an integrated approach. And this process needs to be established in an effective manner under integrated management system processes. Closeout activities. Upon non-conformity, reports have been submitted. Auditee initiates the actions, and documented evidences are generated in order to close the non-conformances. And an auditor's responsibility would include follow-up activities and looking at effectiveness of actions being implemented. Also do consider if proposed actions are fully implemented as a part of integrated management system. When an integrated audit finding is reported, auditee shall propose actions that would address multiple management systems. Also consider if changes to IMS procedures have been documented. Have the outcomes improved? Did the problem recur? How well the changes have been communicated as appropriate? Now, what we have been looking at from the beginning of this session is what is an integrated audit and how an integrated audit program needs to be developed and how an audit plan is prepared based on risk of the processes, and how important is integrated processes with the sequence and interaction of these processes for an integrated audit. And we have been also looking at how to perform a document review. And in order to do a document review, what are the tools and techniques required for us to prepare? And then how we execute the on-site integrated audit through audit trails. And how do we sample out during an on-site audit? And how do we report a non-conformity? Now, the upcoming slides are going to talk about auditor competence and evaluation. A very important thing in integrated audit is the audit team shall comprise of auditors with competence on multiple management system standards. Determining auditor competency is important for an integrated audit. We need to evaluate based on a criteria. And most importantly, we need to establish the evaluation criteria prior to auditors assigned. So when we talk about auditor competence, we need to determine the required competencies, establish the evaluation criteria, select appropriate evaluation methods, conduct the auditor evaluation, and we have to maintain and improve the auditor competencies too in an organization. Now, in accordance with ISO 19011, achieving integrated auditor competency, we could see in ISO 19011 how the generic knowledge and skills are mapped with respect to quality, environment, and occupational health and safety. It is good to have at least one auditor on the audit team who is a member of top management. That will demonstrate the organization's commitment and involvement towards intended results. Others in the team can have quality or environment, health and safety, or functional safety or food safety proficiency. At a minimum, auditors should have high school diploma and 5 years of work experience, or college degree with minimum 3 years of work experience. And what is recommended is few auditors should have passed a lead auditor class, which will help the audit team in terms of knowledge sharing and also to make an effective audit. Others in the team could be internal auditor certified. When we talk about auditor competency, it is better if all auditors are trained in the same course or by same provider. Auditors should have participated and be double teamed in at least 2 audits and then witnessed before they conduct an audit. And the criteria for evaluation should consider both ISO 19011 and the organization's requirements too. Integrated auditor competencies, when we talk about competency requirements, an auditor shall possess the competency to describe relationship between different standards and its class requirements. It's not necessary that everyone on the audit team have this competency to describe the relationship between different class requirements and different standards. However, The best auditors will know each of the standards being considered for the IMS. Auditor competency should also include how well the auditor can list the requirements of classes and difference between comparable classes. This competency goes hand in hand with the one above. It's necessary to understand not only the standards and the requirements, it is also required to understand to the detailed level of the shall requirements and how the shall requirements are comparable with different management system standards. Auditor shall be competent to conduct document review on multiple management system standards, and in an organization, in the integrated management system, when it chose to do integrated audits, the lead auditor of the team needs to have this competency. The lead auditor who performs the documentation review should know the documentation requirements of each standard and should be able to evaluate each procedure against the shall requirements of these standards. Auditors shall be competent to create IMS audit plans and prioritize the audits. And of course, it falls as a responsibility of the IMS auditors. If we look at these information on this slide about auditor competency, these are oriented more towards the integrated auditor competencies for an integrated audit. Essentially, it is required for an integrated audit. Integrated auditor responsibilities in audit includes conducting opening and closing meetings, interviewing process owners and audit integrated processes. When we talk about interviewing process owners and audit integrated processes, it would be best if all the auditors had the knowledge of competencies listed on the previous slide. However, checklist with instructions on sampling made especially for the organization's processes could eliminate the need to retain the knowledge of all the standards. It's very difficult for an auditor to remember multiple management system standards requirements, shall requirements. It's advisable that a customized checklist can be used for integrated audits. Writing non-conformances is one of the responsibility, and closeout for integrated management system findings. Now, as a part of the auditor competency evaluation, we need to select the appropriate auditor evaluation methodology. This slide gives an overview on the evaluation methods, the objective of evaluation, and what could be possible examples to evaluate an auditor. We can choose different approach in isolation or in combination to evaluate an auditor's competence. For an integrated audit, the auditor shall be competent on multiple management system standards and shall also be evaluated for multiple management system standards. And auditor competencies, once evaluated and the audit team has been chosen for the integrated audits, it's imperative that the auditor shall also maintain and improve his competencies. And maintaining and improving auditor competency shall be through continuous professional development activities. Now, auditors and audit team leaders should continually improve their competency through the use of continual professional developments. And they need to participate in CPD programs on integrated management system audits. CPD, additional work experience, training, coaching, attendance to meetings, seminars, and conferences. Auditors can participate in auditor symposium or auditing forums, auditing seminars, and auditing conferences in order to maintain and improve their auditor competencies. Continual evaluation of performance of auditors are vital part of maintaining and improving competency. And during this continual professional development, we should take into account the changes in the practices of auditing, the changes in the organization's processes, changes in the organizational developments. And nevertheless, do not forget, we should also consider and take into account changes in relevant standards, sanction interpretations, and other applicable requirements, including customer and regulatory. An auditor shall maintain and improve auditor competencies through the use of CPD programs. Now, looking at the overview of this session on integrated audits, the initial few slides were talking about what is an integrated audit and how do we do an audit program and how do we prepare ourselves for the audit process. It also includes how to prepare an audit plan, how to perform a document review, what are the tools and techniques like use of a turtle diagram, use of sequence and interaction of processes for integrated audits, use of a checklist, and use of audit trails for integrated audit approach, based on which the on-site audits are performed, and how an integrated audit non-conformity is reported. And the session is getting to the end by talking about how an auditor shall maintain his competency. So if we look at the session, it covers more of how an integrated audit is managed in an organization. So as a part of the integrated management system, and when we talk about the three pillars, the integrated audit falls as one of the pillars towards effective implementation and demonstration of an integrated management system. This session is a quick overview and an extract for organizations to understand how integrated audits can be utilized as a management tool for improving the effectiveness of integrated management system. This session is an inspiration from the book Integrated Management Systems, written by Chad Keimer, the founder and technical director of Omnex, Gregory Greska, and Dan Reed. So with the inspiration, this session is a part of the integrated management system and its effectiveness. So with that, folks, I give a pass for any questions. And also wrapping up the session with a quick Q&A slide. Thank you for listening all this time about the integrated audit and how to conduct an integrated audits.
Thanks, Praburam. This ends today's presentation. Thanks for listening.